but every meal we went, there was so much food, way too much food. Tourist restaurant. It's very like, one of the problems though is a lot of food sickness. So having real Korean food was great. 맞습니다. Very cold, very cold. Yesterday I went running outside with some friends. -10, I think. Yeah, at Gwanghwamun. Since 2016, January 2016.
When was your first visit to North Korea?
2009, August 2009. It's like nice weather actually, not like Changma had finished.
How did you decide to go to North Korea?
So I was in university studying a master's program in a subject called non-proliferation and international security. Non-proliferation is like 피핵화, like denuclearization. Yeah, obviously, North Korea is an important case study. Became very interested in North Korea as a student. It was raining one day in London, watching YouTube, and then I found a documentary about North Korea, which I watched, and I have to go. So different to what I'm used to. In August 2009 on a tour for about 9 days, 10 days with a good friend of mine and some other friends. I think I was 25. Literally changed my life. Like, I don't think I would be sitting with you now. Very mild anxiety about going, but actually it seemed quite safe compared to going to like Iraq or Afghanistan or somewhere where you have a real threat of terrorism, bombs going off. Like, North Korea is very controlled and strict. So the chance of dangerous accident or incident seemed quite low. We actually took a train from Beijing to Dandong and then Dandong to Pyongyang. It's like a 24-hour train journey. You get to see the countryside, and we drank a lot of beer on the train with local Koreans. And yeah, 대동강 맥주. 감사합니다. I presume it was Taedonggang Mekju, the main beer of North Korea, right? Even in South Korea, one time I was in Mokpo, wanted to go back on Mugunghwa instead of KTX because I quite like the slow train, just like seeing countryside, and you can meet and talk to like some ordinary country people versus KTX, like everyone's quite, looking at a laptop or like, and Mugunghwa, like as you might remember, it used to have like noraebang room and restaurant, not anymore, but like 10 years ago it did. I like the long train journey, but we did, Koryo Hangkong, we flew back to Beijing afterwards. You got jeok, right? Oh, many times. I mean, I lived here like almost 10 years now. Exactly, so we arrived around 5 p.m. and then went to a hotel and then had a kind of welcome meal. Next day we started the tour, mainly Wonsan, Pyongyang, Kaesong. I was really keen to see Wonsan because I love beaches, curious to see like how people in North Korea like enjoy the coastline. When I uploaded my photos to Facebook afterwards, the photos from the beaches actually got a lot of attention from some of my South Korean friends. Wow, people in North Korea also enjoy the beach. It looks kind of normal. And actually the funny thing for me is like people on the beach in North Korea look much more like Europeans than South Koreans. If I go to the beach in South Korea, everyone looks like they're dressed in the Middle East. Like they're wearing like black, like even the men, they wear like the tight-fitting stuff because no one wants the suntan. But in North Korea, men are just wearing shorts. Women are wearing like a bathing outfit. And that's the culture I know in Europe is the same as North Korea. We like just wear like a bathing suit. And in South Korea, it's like everyone's covering up. And to foreigners, it looked very strange in South Korea. But yeah, North Korean beach was interesting. Half the beach was for foreigners, half the beach was for Koreans, but no mixing. Just that North Korea is very strict about mixing Korean and foreign because foreign people obviously have so much more information about the outside world, and I think the government of North Korea believes it's a risk to let people talk too much because then local Koreans will learn more about, different ways of life, different political systems, etc., which is, it's unfortunate.
Then the restaurant is also divided in 4 ways. for the foreigners and for the
Some restaurants are just for foreigners. Some restaurants are just for tourists. We went to a hotel and we just ate in a hotel restaurant. Well, that's the sad thing is many foreigners who go to North Korea don't really get an opportunity to ever really freely meet normal citizens or talk to them. You might meet some in like a bar at night in a hotel or in a shop. But generally, it's very difficult to have a conversation. If you do have a conversation, the Koreans you're speaking to may be from a very elite special authorization to talk to foreigners. Actually, the only place you can talk to them is on the train. The train journey I mentioned earlier, there's no guide on the train, there's a security official. So as a tourist, you're just freely allowed to move around the train and talk to people and there's no one like controlling it. So that was really a key reason why I got the train. And also places like the beach was also one of the places you can kind of talk to people. Friend who's 재미있으셨다면, who came to Wonsan. You know, I mentioned the divide on the beach. Well, when you go into the water, the divide ends, right? Like North Koreans swimming, and I saw he just mixed in and started talking in Korean, and that was pretty cool.
so visa or traveling, there's no restrictions.
재미있으셨다면, they have to sign a contract which says they are not going to North Korea to try and find family members. The North Korean government doesn't want that. Overseas ethnic Koreans, when I was going, were very welcome to visit. These days, that might change, I think. Government in North Korea has become a lot more strict and controlling and paranoid and worried about outside information. Ethnic Koreans are a particular threat because they are the same ethnicity and they are aware of how much better South Korea's economy is, how much more political freedom there is in South Korea. And so for North Korea's government, that's a particular risk because it means the same kind of people coming into the country who may speak the same language and then share information about how there's such a huge divide between North and South Korea. If people in North Korea are widely aware of how developing North Korea is compared to the rest of Northeast Asia, it can actually decrease faith of citizens in their government that they're doing the right thing.
Have some conversation with the North Korean. Did you got any recommendations of food in North Korea?
No. Even if you can get recommendations, because you're on a guided tour, it's really difficult to do anything because they tend to fill the schedule every day like 100%. So you're from like 9 a.m. till 7 p.m. They're taking you to all these like sites, museums, and you don't have free time to just go to a restaurant that you want to go to.
Then the restaurants or the food you have had in North Korea is actually scheduled.
Exactly. Yeah, I think you get a very distorted picture. One of the things I remember on my first trip was North Korea was widely known to be having a food shortage and not enough food to feed its own people. But every meal we went to, there was so much food, like for the tourists. And I always felt bad because maybe taking food from people who need it more. And it was way too much for like, even a hungry foreigner is way too much food. I remember like leaving food behind and looking, when we left the restaurant, I looked back at the food and I saw like one of the waitresses was like collecting all the rice and putting it into a container. I wondered if they were going to use it maybe for farming or like for some other purpose, which is, 18, I was back in North Korea for media, for journalism. We were able to leave the group and just walk with some friends who are diplomats, and the diplomats can freely go where they want. And if the journalist is with a diplomat, we can freely go where we want. So we had a really interesting walk around the city and tried some local food that way. I think you have them in South Korea as well. In the pyeonijjeom, like those tubes with the kind of sausage. It's like the one in plastic, really low quality meat inside. It really doesn't taste like meat. We had ice creams and things like that.
Then how was your first impression of real local food in North Korea?
There was a lot of MSG. You know, in English restaurants you'd get salt, right? But they used the MSG. They didn't have the salt one. It was just MSG. In a lot of the restaurants we had it was like that. I remember I was in Kaesong and I think I got, do you know like it's called a mouth ulcer. I had that. It was really painful, and it was getting bigger. And I was like, oh, what am I gonna do? And then the North Korean guide was like, you need to put salt. The salt will like kill the bacteria, right? Which is true. He pulled it out, and I went like that. And then I realized it was MSG. So I was putting MSG on the wound, which I don't think helped. But I also did try the boshingtang in North Korea. Yeah, I knew. I had dog several times in North Korea. Like we had the kegalbi, dog ribs. Yeah, we went to Chongjin. We had like a spicy dog meat, which was quite good. And yeah, boshingtang in Pyongyang as well.
Was it local place or the foreigners restaurant?
Local one. I think it was normal. I can't remember. Maybe around $10. But foreigners pay more. They just give us different price.
Like a foreign premium.
Exactly. They call it tanggogi, and they have like huge tanggogi restaurants that just do dog meat. So it's still very popular in North Korea. Yeah, sogogi, daejigogi, like they have it all, but chicken as well. But they use everything on the animal. So you like often get like big lumps of fat or like lumps of like cartilage, like muscle. When you're eating, it's like, you know, you're chewing. There's often like funny things that you can't swallow very easily. But yeah, also they're very into the seafood as well. Like when we went to Wonsan, it's like sokcho. You have a lot of good seafood there, like raw fish and
In North Korea, it's very hard to find the gogi.
eggs. Well, yeah, I think they, you know, for foreigners, they're always giving the best options for when you're a tourist. If you have money in North Korea, normally you can get everything you need. If you don't have money, you can't. Kind of restaurants we went to, mostly hotel restaurants. Sometimes you did see Koreans, but they looked a bit richer, you know, like big beer belly, 맥주배. But you know, on the train you meet more like diverse people. On like 길거리 음식, like that kind of food, you have everyone from like Pyongyang. One of the problems though is a lot of foreigners go to North Korea and they get food sickness. They get poisoned by the food because the food hygiene levels are very different. I got sick, maybe not too bad, but I definitely did get sick at the end of my trip. And I've seen some people who are extremely sick, like lots of vomiting. And
Then have you tried the 길거리 음식 too? Or when you saw what kind of 길거리 음식 they saw?
Kimbap from the street, for example. That was the only thing I remember vividly. It was before I went to South Korea, right? So I didn't know anything about Korean culture, like what kim is.
Before you came to South Korea, the image of the Korea was same?
I knew South Korea was obviously a lot richer, but being honest, I had no interest in going to South Korea for a long time. It just felt like a normal country. Like, why would I go? What could I learn? I went to North Korea 3 times before I went to South Korea. And then I went to South Korea in 2013. There just for summer, like in Jeju and Seoul. I mean, South Korea has grown on me. When I first went, it was not very remarkable. I didn't feel, oh, I want to come back here. But I did, and eventually worked here and learned a lot about, and I think you learn a lot about both Koreas. You see a lot of similarities between North and South Korea when you live here a long time, and if you visit the North a lot. At the root of this, both people are Korean, both citizens. They're just under different political systems, so there are some similarities.
Then why did you decide to come to South Korea?
2010, I was working in Washington, D.C., organization that was called Korean Economic Institute. It's like a think tank that's funded by South Korean government. I was like the communications director there, and I was running my website, NK뉴스. So I had to suddenly make the website, put a lot of effort to try and make revenue grow so that I could support myself. But when you get fired in America, if you're a foreigner on an immigrant visa, you have to leave the country. So I had to go home to London. And then I thought I'll try and study some Korean, a Korean class that was near Nonsan. So it's like Wanjan Shigwol. I studied there for 3 months. By that point, we had a small office in Seoul with 2 of my colleagues were working there. Decision was that work was a big part because this was 2016. Trump was elected in 2017. When Trump was president, news on North Korea became #1 most important news story worldwide. It was a great place to be, so we stayed. I got married in that year, and then my wife wanted to stay in Korea it looks like I'm going to be here at least for another few years. With my work, like running the website, we just started a website about South Korea as well 2 years ago. So it really is a good place to be for my work. Going back to UK would be kind of strange to run a website on Korea and be in the UK. It just doesn't really make sense, right? So
Liking Korea so far?
South Korea has become my home now. I do feel at home. It's still a foreign country to me though. I still have a lot of daily difficulties because of the language and culture, and I feel overall it's good. As long as I can travel often, I'm very happy here.
Do you remember the first food in?
I actually think it was 어썸코리아. yeah. I really like spicy food. I remember certainly in 2013 when I came to do my language program, it was 100%. It was 어썸코리아 in a 휴게소 somewhere. It was good. I had been to a lot of Korean restaurants in Europe and America, so I knew the food well. In America there's a lot of good 고깃집. I really like fried chicken, so I was excited to taste the Korean fried chicken. Korea's always had chicken as far as I know. I really like buldak, for example, like really spicy ones. Yeah, it was great tasting all of that. 10 years ago, there was not good fried chicken in the UK. It was like kind of American style, and I really enjoyed the Korean one a lot.
Whoa.
Well, yeah, what I realized the food we were often getting in North Korea was not really Korean food. What I realized was when I arrived in South Korea and seeing all the food here was the North Korean tourist company. I think they maybe worry too much about what foreigners can and can't eat, and so they adapt the menu a lot for Westerners. Kimchi is very mild. You certainly in North Korea, foreigners wouldn't be ever given something like this in a normal kind of tourist restaurant. It's very like mingming. Yeah, it's just pretty plain, and I think they think that foreigners can't eat like spice or can't eat strong flavors, so they give a very like strange menu. So having real Korean food was it was really nice. Great. Every day I can eat spicy food, and a lot of rice, a lot of plain kimchi, a piece of lightly fried fish or lightly fried pork or something like that with like a kind of batter on it, 튀김 style. Oh yeah, we went to 오리고기 집, and that was quite similar to South Korean 고깃집, but with 오리고기. I don't remember like 된장 or I don't remember having 된장찌개. Actually in Kaesong we did have 된장찌개. Yeah, I remember that. We had the boshintang in Kaesong as well. Maybe it's different here. In North Korea, in Kaesong, because me and my friend were like, let's get the boshintang, let's try it. And then the guide said, if you pay extra, €5 extra, it's like you can get the the downstairs part, the gochu. I was like, seriously? So they said, yeah. And then he said, it's good for stamina. So we paid for it. Basically ate dog's dick. I remember the restaurant, there was a electricity problem. So we were in the dark. It was completely dark, and we just had like a torch. And we were looking at this soup. It was not good. So the strange thing about North Korea, at least 2 currency systems. So North Korean won, for North Korean people, approximately 8,000 won is $1. If you go into a restaurant that foreigners visit, the conversion is completely different. In a foreigner restaurant, $1, it might be about 121. It's extremely difficult to understand on the surface, but basically, like I explained earlier, when you see the prices in the foreigner conversion, what they're really saying is you have to pay in dollars, or you have to pay in euros. If you try to pay with like 121, they'll just laugh and say, no, you can't do that. In contrast, the restaurants where you see the prices like, tteokbokki, 8,000 won, $1. If a foreigner tries to pay $1, they'll say no. They won't accept, in fact, in those places, they won't accept the foreigner often from buying the product because it's really designed for local people. It's much cheaper. Yeah, so it's very complicated. They're not very transparent often about the exchange rate. And then another thing is that often when you're buying something as a foreigner, they often don't have enough change. Instead of giving you the exact change, they'll like give you $5 plus some chewing gum or a cigarette or something like that to make the difference.
Do they have fried chicken too?
Yeah, I had the North Korean fried chicken and it was very, it was not so good. I might even have a photo of it here, but it was, oh yeah, here we go.
No.
That's the fried chicken in North Korea. And you can see the like yangnyeon seasoning in there. Like, oh, it was not great. We had the soju as well, which was this was unique because it very similar to South Korean design. You can see the bottle.
Yeah.
Normally, like in the past, the North Korean soju looked very different, but around 2018, they were copying the South Korean product design a lot. So for about 2 or 3 years, the designs looked very similar. But recently, they've gone back like more conservative, and I think it's much more North Korean style now. There was like even ramyeon, like buldak ramyeon. It's a very similar design, chicken character. Yeah, they did a lot of, I mean, we've written articles about this that like compare the products from North and South Korea. At one point, 5 years ago, they were kind of copying the South Korean design. The North Korean product designers maybe knew that this was an effective design, works well. You may have heard from Talbukja, South Korean TV shows and drama series were very popular in North Korea. So if you can sell something that has a similar design to what may be appearing in the dramas, it might help. But I don't know if that's still happening. I've been to like some of the supermarkets in Baekwajeom. Yes, maybe in some countryside areas the power situation is not so good. Having 24-hour electricity, even in Pyongyang, is difficult, except for very, elite people. I guess freezer keeps cold for a few hours. Maybe also why people get sick. Like I said, the foreigners often get sick trying the North Korean food because it's not being kept very safely.
And have more talk about the North Korean.
Sounds good. 좋아요.